Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of degrees. A lot of people don't, you know, when when you tell them the story of the military and my time in the military, a lot of people don't believe it. It's a unusual story. A lot of people ask me, well, who gets 12 degrees? Because most people, if you get an associate degree, you get it. Especially if you're in the Air Force, you'll get an associate degree. Then you go get your bachelor's, and you might go get a job or something just based on that. And some people go on to get their master's and they get their doctorates and all that other good stuff, right? But in aviation, you can have all of those degrees, and it really doesn't mean anything. In aviation, it's about your reputation. If you fly airplanes, it's about how many hours you have, because your hours that you accumulate actually tells your experience and how experienced you are at your craft. I really got out. I mean, I had a serious transformation toward the end of my career, because when I became an ops officer and I was more into the desk stuff, and I didn't really want to be, but that's where they put you. And for me, it was an Achilles heel, because when they find out that you have certain skills that the Air Force wants you to use, the military comes first. And it ain't like I can just say, oh, I want to do this. Like now they have programs where it's like, if you just want to be a pilot, like the Warrant Officer program in the Army and the Marine Corps, you just want to fly helicopters, you just want to fly, you're just a flying pilot. That's all you're going to do, is just be a pilot, period. Fly aircraft. That's it. Nothing else. But coming out of maintenance, I can talk maintenance, and I also know operations on the ops side of it, which is the flying side of it. So you combine, if you know those two things and you combine them together, you are a operations officer, because you do the training, you do the maintenance schedules, you understand everything that's being told on you. And toward the end of my career, that's where they slammed me they put me in there. I didn't really want to go. I always tell people, as far as being a pilot, I'm average. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, I'm not a fighter pilot. I fly cargo. I used to fly cargo, C-130 being my primary aircraft. But yeah, I can do the job. I'm not going to say I'm a great. I accumulated probably, when I left the military, a little over 6,000 hours of flying time. 6,000 hours, various aircraft. I know I have at least 1,200 in the C5 alone. I remember that. I have 1,200 at least in the C5. And, I was a very good ops officer. The Air Force knew what they were doing. At least my command knew what they were doing, because when they came to me, they're like, hey, what do you think about going into ops? I was like, no, because when you go into ops, you're not going to fly like everybody else. All these people were going on these great trips, and I have to sit here and be like, okay, I got to schedule the training. I got to do, it was a little disappointing, but that's just, the luck of the draw. I still flew enough to keep my currencies, but I couldn't do what everybody else was. And then that's when it really dawned on me that I wasn't the young guy that I was, because anybody that knew me in my military career, they will tell you that every trip I was there, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Boom, boom, boom. I was gone. And, I just was back-to-back trips. I just did all kinds of stuff. Just, because I was young and I was strong and I could do it, and then, I had a family to support, and, no regrets. It was tough, but I did what I had to do, and, it is what it is. So I'm looking at it like this. Okay, I'm in this military. I ended up getting 2 degrees on the enlisted side. I got a CCAF in aircraft maintenance technology, and I got the aviation operations degree. So I got those 2 degrees, and I know everybody says, well, this guy, 12, who does that? The one thing I did make sure of is I tried not to get the same degree in, the same degree. Some of them are pretty repetitive. I got 6 aviation degrees, and the other ones are in various fields, right? And people say, why would you do that? Well, one thing, I like learning. I don't think just because you get a degree, you stop learning. Life is a learning lesson. You could be 70 years old and still learn something new. And I just said, well, if I'm going to be in this military, I'm going to get everything I can get out of it. And I CLEP'd. And those that don't know what CLEPing is, that's called the College Level Examination Program. And that's where you can like basically challenge a class. So good example, I was very, very good at history in high school. So I was so good at history that, when some of my friends, you guys know what I'm talking about, they would ask to borrow my notes. And I really scribbled a lot of stuff, but I knew what to take and what not to take. So if I'm really good at history, everybody's good at something in school. Some people are good at lunch, some people are good at PE, but I was very, very good in history. And so knowing that I could select a subject on the Dante's CLEPing thing, good example, let's say, and basically I CLEP'd all of the histories, basically. History of Vietnam, the Vietnam War, CLEP'd it, no problem. Rise and fall of the Soviet Union, CLEP'd it, no problem. Western Civilization 1 and 2, CLEP'd them, no problem. So each of those classes that I just named, there are 3 units. I can either use them for electives or I can plug them into the general aspect of it. The major CLEPing, the 5 CLEPing courses, you have Western Civilization, math, you guys that know what CLEPing is, you know what it is. That's 30 units right there. You know what I mean? So I did that, 120 units, and I would go to different schools and I would, ask them what their requirements were and what I needed to do. And usually at most schools, you got to take at least 1 class there, or 6 units, approximately about 6 units. Then they would award your degree if you can plug in everything else. And that's pretty much what I did. It was like, oh, this guy must be a genius. No, I'm not a genius. I just knew how to play the numbers game. And my Achilles heel was math. I was so bad at math that I literally had to start from scratch, because you guys that remember, if you're a child of the 70s and late 60s, remember those things called flashcards. Flashcards were great. You memorized it, 5 times 5 is 25. 1 plus 2 is 3. You know what I mean? You just memorized it. You didn't break it down. You just knew that's the number. That's all good and great until you get to algebra. And when I was in high school, I failed algebra twice. And it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't do the problem. I can get the answer. I couldn't show how I got the answer. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You have those instructors that were like, okay, you got to show your work and break it down so they can see how you're structuring it. I couldn't do it. I just knew that 2 squared, is 2 times 2. You know what I mean? And you would just do it. And that's 4, that's 8. And I just couldn't structure what he wanted me to do to work to get the answer. So when I got to college, I had to retake all of my math, which brings up another funny story. When I was in flight training down at Altus, Oklahoma, I was down there and I was, taking this test, and make a long story short, I was going to, I was doing a bunch of calculations, right? Didn't know my math skills were like really bad. I'm not saying I couldn't get by on some things. I did get by on some things, but my math skills were very, very lacking. And this is a story down there. I doubt if the instructors that were there. I basically failed. And you get 2 times to try, whatever, and I failed. And my instructors were like, they were like, what's the problem? Because they always ask you, maybe there's a death in your family, maybe there's something that you didn't anticipate, you know what I mean? And they try to, weed out the problem. And I can say that the Air Force structure was very fair in the how they structured the academic of it. Now, your examiners, the racism was very prevalent there, and that's a totally different story that I'll talk about some other time. But make a long story short, if I didn't pass this block, I couldn't move on to the next block. And this was my last chance to pass it. And my instructor came up to me, he goes, Donovan, if you couldn't pass this now, how are you going to pass it Monday? I had a whole weekend to work on this. And I just told myself, I don't know. I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, you don't want to go back to your unit, washing out of tech school or whatever, school you're going to, whatever your undergraduate pilot, whatever. Because it's embarrassing because now you're going back to your old AFSC and, your job, because you can't join a flying squadron if you don't have a flying rating, right? So I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be embarrassing. It's bad enough, being, the few, people don't want to say this, but it was prevalent in my day. Like I said, when you talk about the Tuskegee Airmen and the shit that they went through, thank God they went through it because it was a lot easier by the time I came on board. But even when the time I came on board, remember, I'm dealing with people that are my parents' age that grew up in separate but equal. So there was still a lot of prevalent racism with the higher ups, So make a long story short, what I had to do is I would go to the CBT, the computer-based training unit, and they had this mock-up simulator. And I would go in there, and the military, everything's multiple choice. And most of that weekend, and there's a little bit more to the story than that, but most of that weekend, I basically memorized the test bank. Over 400 questions total, I guess. It was like 400 or something like that questions. 500, it could be 500, 600. Whatever the number was, they could ask the same question 3 or 4 different ways. And I stayed there all that weekend, late at night. Because if you're a student, you had access to it and stuff like that. And this was before 9/11 and all that other stuff. And I memorized the test bank. And so when I got there that Monday morning to take the test, they give you your pen and your scratch paper and all all this stuff like that. And then when you're done, you got to give it to them. And I went in there, and the test was supposed to take 2 hours and 15 minutes is what I had, I believe, something like that. I got done in like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm just going off memory, just going off of my mush. I think I scored like a 94, right? 94. And I gave them back the scratch paper, and I said, and everything I had and the materials I had, there was nothing on it. And they were like, wait a minute. You don't have anything on the paper here. I was like, yeah, I know. They go, but you scored a 90. Yeah, I know. And they couldn't believe it. And they thought something was a little bit amiss. Of course, I'm a black man. Of course, there's always an amiss. And sure enough, I took the test again. And I think the second time I took the test, I scored like a 92, maybe a 90. You needed a 75 and above. I scored, I was in there. And I remember I went to my instructor, and he said, what's going on? And I said, he goes, how'd you do that? And I said, I memorized the test bank. He was like, you memorized the test bank? I said, yeah, I memorized the test bank. Which isn't illegal. It isn't illegal to do that. At least it wasn't when I was going through. And he couldn't believe it. And he says, Donovan, he goes, you still don't know anything about math, do you? I said, no. He said, I would strongly recommend when you get back to your home base, and while we're here in the training section, learn what you need to learn here. Because once you pass that block, you don't have to worry about it anymore. He said, work on your math. And sure enough, when I got back to home duty, I started from general mathematics, and I worked my way all the way back up to trig. Unbelievable story, but it actually happened. And that's pretty much how I started my my educational career, based against these obstacles and stuff. And that's basically a true story. That's basically a true story. And I play the numbers now, and that's what I did. And that's how I got 12 degrees. No, it isn't like, oh, this guy, what I did was think about it. I have 11 associate degrees and 1 bachelor degree. How am I getting all these associate degrees? I've already qualified for, my stuff. I just plug it in, transfer it over, and plug it in. I have some classes in there and stuff, but I'm a graduate from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which is the top aeronautical university in the world. And it's funny because when you tell people you graduated from that school, I don't know what it is because I'm black, they just don't believe you. They're like, Embry-Riddle, because, oh, did you go to the academy? No, I'm not an academy guy. A good friend of mine, he went to the academy from Compton, California, by the way. He's still flying C-17s over at March Air Reserve Base to this very day. Good. Uh, basically almost like a family member, to me. But he does his thing over there, and we were in same. He was stationed at Altus actually too, and yeah, I mean that's a true story, and that's pretty much how I started my career. You plugged all this stuff in, and think about it. You got 12 associate degrees. It's like, well, how's he? That's it. I would take one class, and I get that degree. I take this class, I get that degree. I'm just having fun now. I got a degree in social and behavioral science through the military program. And a lot of these schools, I made sure they were part of the military program. I mean, I was Mr. Education as well. And a lot of my troops and maintenance people, I made sure that they did what they had to do. So when people say, oh, did you go to the academy? I said, well, no, I went to the junior academy, which is true. That's a true statement. If you are a graduate of the Community College of the Air Force, that's the junior college versus the 4-year academy. So I went to the 2-year academy, basically. And but I went to Embry-Riddle, which is a private university. And the funny thing is, I remember when I came home and I was getting ready to graduate, and I flew from here, because at the time I was still here in California. I come back again through the reserves, and I flew to Louisiana, and I told my mom about it. She was like, okay, because my mom had never seen any of my graduations. I'd been to all my graduations. And my mom, you got to think about it like this. How would you be as a parent that your son or your daughter is in the military, and you see them graduate from Vincennes University and they mail you the diploma, right? You say, okay, wow, okay, great for them, yay. Then you see them mail you their CCF degree, okay, 1, 2 degrees. You're like, okay, Air Force, yeah, okay, I could accept that. Then you see them San Diego Miramar College, San Bernardino, Riverside. You're seeing all these degrees being mailed to you, and my mom was just like, kind of like you guys are now, like, why would you have 12 different degrees and stuff like that? And I said, well, Mom, I'm going to be graduating on this day today. I want you to be there for this graduation, because I wanted her to see it. Because let's face it, some of us, like I said, I lost my dad when I was 5 years old, and my mom made a lot of sacrifices for my brother and I. And basically, I wanted to make sure that she saw my bachelor's degree from this prestigious college that was paid for, 75% of it, by the military, that all her sacrifices, all those ass whippings, all those restrictions was not in vain, okay? She didn't waste her time doing that, okay? So that degree was really for her. So I remember go down there, I picked up, my brother was there, and he's trying to get this truck, and we were going to drive from Louisiana to Florida, And so my brother's trying to get this truck, going and stuff, this SUV, and he had to do some work on it, whatever. And he finally got it, and we ran down there, and we drove like all night or so. I forget exactly what it was, but I remember we were pulling up during the day that morning when it was time to, they dropped me off. I put my cap and gown on and everything like that. And I was in the announcements. My mom was just like in awe, because this was an awesome school, high tech. Embry-Riddle is like the best. You go to anybody in aviation and you say Embry-Riddle, that is like saying aviation. Okay, doesn't matter if you have a A&P degree, a pilot degree, a dispatcher's license, pilot license, operations. It doesn't matter. If anything in aviation, you say Embry-Riddle, everybody knows what you're talking about. And, I was at the very end of the thing, and there was a bunch of military people there. We're all mixing in and stuff. And they're saying, where are you from? And some guys were from different bases, because, if you want to go to the ceremony at the college, you're going to have to converge in there and do that. Because, March had its own Embry-Riddle, and most Air Force bases had a Embry-Riddle outlet that you can go to. And I went down there, and I graduated. My mom was watching me graduate, and I thought that was a very defining moment for my mom to actually see and believe that I did what I was supposed to do while in the military. Every parent wants to see their child graduate college because, for my mom, she was supposed to go to college and all that other stuff. And unfortunately, my dad tripped her up. He was getting ready to go to Vietnam. And, like a lot of us, our parents in that era, shit happens, right? So she got sidetracked. And, but to see her, her children do very, very well, I thought that was a great thing. She wasn't there to see me get my commission, but I sent my commissioning document and everything like that to her. And it's somewhere in the storage facility. I mean, all of my original degrees my mom has, and she put it in storage, but then she went through Katrina, so there's another story to that stuff. But yeah, that was one of the happy moments, seeing my mom watch me graduate. And I just have vivid memories of me graduating kindergarten, me getting my confirmation in 8th grade. My mom high school graduation, very pivotal thing. My mom was always very, very supportive of what I was supposed to do. You know what I mean? It was like, she's happy, but at the same time, this is what I'm supposed to do. And to over exceed those expectations is, it got to a point to where I was like right now, I'm eligible for this 12th degree. This is my very last degree. And I don't think my mom is interested in really caring about this 12th degree. She's happy for me, but she's working on her degree. And, my mom is, she's 70. My mom's 20 years older than me, so she's 70. And she's going back and getting her degree, and you're never too old to do that. And I think it would be great to go see her graduation versus, always seeing mine or the grandkids and all that other stuff. So, but that's a true story. True story.